Welcome everybody to the Cumberland County Commissioners Finance Meeting of July 6, 2016. To call this to order and open the floor to any public comment. Not much of the public here, so we'll move on with our main course for today. We have been approached by the Cumberland Group in terms of some of the services that they provide to government entities in terms of looking for ways to improve performance and cost effectiveness, amongst other things. We had I thought, a very productive phone conversation about where we were versus, or in relation to where the kinds of services that you all offer. And we are here today to hear from you in more depth about what you think.
Okay. Question number one is, how long would you like us to take or not take?
We have this meeting planned for now.
Good to go. As long as I get this to work. Where should I be pointing?
You need to push the
You have to
arrows.
do these.
Sorry. There we go. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. We kind of broke this down in different segments in terms of what we do. And one of the things we want to talk about before we even get into strategic planning is some of the counties that we've done work for. One of them, I didn't touch anything that time. Shouldn't be on timer. We have done work with Cumberland County before, but it was money that came through the state. It was either through CCAP or Commission on Crime and Delinquency. There was a number of projects that we did along with those two organizations where Cumberland County was part of a group of counties that were picked. You asked that question and I answered a non-direct answer, which is I don't think we've ever been paid by you in terms of Cumberland County, but we have worked on your behalf with certain projects that we've done.
One was Route 222 and the other was
You were
integration, county integration.
County integration projects. At one point, Commission on Crime and Delinquency and CCAP used to have a lot of grant funding available to them, unlike what they do currently. And we were one of the vendors that was chosen to work along with them to get anything from bench warrants done to the 222 integration, which looked at crime along there, mostly drug trafficking, things like that that were going on through this area up into Newark, New Jersey area. So we were part of that. One of the things that we do, before we would get started with anything for you, as we talked about on the phone, is look at your strategic plan. What you have going on, what you are looking to do. More importantly, we understand there's a lot of paper around here. We also understand that some of your systems, based on what systems they are, and when they were brought online, are kind of getting old. And if they're not updated, that may be some of the reason that you have so much paper. So we look at the people that you have in place, technology that you have in place, but more importantly, the processes that you're using. One of the things that we've noticed in a lot of different counties throughout Pennsylvania and New Jersey, which is our two primary places that we work, is paper was replaced by electronic paper, but nobody changed the process. So you're still using a process that was based on, I'm going to hand you a piece of paper, you're going to hand it, you're going to hand it, and nobody actually looks at how to use the technology in a better way. You may have done some of it. The question is, how deep has it gone so far? The other thing is, and everybody asked, how many counties have we worked in, and we'll give you the full list. Every one of the counties that we do, we tailor what we do for them. Because even though we joke about this amongst ourselves, you have 67 recorders of deeds in Pennsylvania doing the exact same thing differently. And at one point, we did RFP for Chester and Lancaster County, and there was a Chester section, a Lancaster section, and a both section that the vendor had to respond to. The reason they did it was by buying together, they saved money, but the vendor had to be able to deal with both sets of requirements, 3 sets of requirements actually. Certain things you just have to do. You have to take it over the counter, you got to charge for it, you got to give somebody a receipt. Other than that, how they handled it was totally different. Sorry, I got fancy. Feasibility. No one should start any project without some idea of what the savings are going to be on the other side of the project. So the feasibility analysis, it's not free, but it gives you, sorry about that, thought I had all timing off. It gives you an idea what to anticipate the savings will be. And we are typically measuring at the very beginning, at the very end of a project, or a phase of a project. First piece is, this is what you should expect to receive in terms of return on investment. The last one will be what you did receive on return on investment. We typically look for, there is so much get ready time or time that people take when something happens. I'm in the middle of doing this and I'm reading this, and then the phone rings. And I go off and start doing something else and then come back to this. I actually have to start way before where I was to get back to understanding where I was at that time. And so we try to eliminate that as much as we possibly can by eliminating the interruptions to a person's day. We have found, typically, with a clerical type person in a standard type office, the savings should be somewhere between 20 and 25% of their time. It's not that hard to achieve if you use the right tools to achieve it, and those tools are things that prevent interruptions. Interruptions to any of you you have to rethink where you were, and so it's get ready time. If you can eliminate that, you can move through your day much easier. We've done it from a call center in Delaware County where we took the time that a person would be on hold for about a half an hour on hold to about a minute and a half on hold in a call center. And some of the things we did was just use tools like workflow. We used something as simple, it wasn't as simple as everybody needs to tell now, but we use help desk software. So when you call in to a help desk, whether it be Microsoft or somebody else, somebody starts keying. Well, as they're keying, the screen should be changing to give them the answer to what your question is. So you get the questions answered the same way by everybody, and you get them to be able to give an answer to a question much quicker than typically would happen. And so we didn't do anything really fancy. We were flown out along with people from Delaware County to a Delphi conference. And we were one of the speakers out there because what we did was, instead of things, everything was going this way, that way, and we made everything one direction. If you walked in the door, and that step is step 2. That's only step 3. You can go back to step 1 again. we've been through that.
And the advantage for them is that when this, they got more efficient immediately, but when the states put in a new finance system and all of the other counties around them had to add staff, they were able to keep the same staff that they had, and eventually, through attrition, went down even a little bit more.
They went down
So-
about 10%.
And we know that because they called us in 4 different years in a row, because the department was telling the administration that they needed more staff. And so they had us come in and watch what they were doing,
You're
and they really did
prob-
have enough staff.
Yeah, you're probably all familiar with PACES, the child support system. And while most counties in Pennsylvania added staff, Delaware County was the only one that reduced their staff. Based on the added technology we put around PACES. It's more than paid for itself. And one of the things we talked about earlier, which is the Commission on Crime and Delinquency, had us go around to different counties, 3 small counties, 3 medium counties, 3 large counties, to look at everybody's bench warrant systems and how they process bench warrants, or in a lot of cases, how they didn't process bench warrants. And when we started in Delaware County, there was over 17,000 active bench warrants. When the system went up and active, it went down to 7,000 because we no processed. Stores that were out of business, nobody was going to be showed up in court to say that somebody stole something from them. And the other thing that we did was we sent out a letter that said, if you're reading this letter, we know how to find you. And the next day, there were lines of people paying their fees, their fines, all that kind of stuff. Started with 2 people, there's now 14 active warrant servers, and they bring in money for the county.
So, yeah, our understanding is that Cumberland is growing, and our goal would be to help you be able to handle that growth, without having to increase staff or spend a lot of money. So there's, everything we've done has a payback that's really short.
Our methodology that we talked about on this slide, it is a spin-off of what used to be Anderson's Method 1, which goes back a lot of years. It's pretty much outmoded, but what we did is a bunch of us were trained in that, and so we looked to figure out how to make it better and how to make it more realistic to governments, as opposed to 10 people coming in a team and attacking one department. We try to do it very, very. We usually use teams of 2. It's more efficient. It's more effective for us, we find, and it's much cheaper for you in the long run if we don't bring in these big teams. Okay. One of the things that we spoke about when we first met with Vince was to, if you don't have tangible results in sight, you're never going to get there. So what we do is we try to make sure that we understand what you're looking for, what your goals are, and how we get you to those goals. Because if we don't know where you want to go from your level, we start with you guys. Then we go to the people who actually do the work and find out how they really go about doing their jobs. All of the things that we do are confidential between us and the person that we're interviewing. We do that so that they will talk to us. If they think that somebody is going to hand you a piece of paper saying, so-and-so said this, they're not going to talk to us, and you're not going to get what's really going on out there. So we have found that it's the smartest thing that we can do is make it confidential, except if somebody really does want to be known for what they're thinking, in which case we will give them credit. If not, we aggregate it. We just had a project over in New Jersey at a college, and they gave us a very small sampling of people, and they were actually able to figure out who said what in our report because we didn't have enough people to really talk to. So It would be, okay, Larry, you must have said this, you must have said, and so we'd like to make sure that we're talking to enough people that their individuality is not picked out and that we can really get an idea of what's going on. It's very difficult for an individual to walk over to their supervisor and tell their supervisor that they have a better way of doing what the supervisor told them to do. And most people won't do that.
Well, one example is there was an office that we were in, and most of the people in the office said, I use the computer all day. It would be so easy for me to just, I put my time into a spreadsheet, but then I have to print it out and give it to the secretary who types it in to the database. It would be so much easier for me to just type it into the database. So in a lot of cases, you actually have the staff now trying to push to get more automation in.
And what you see there is where we say productivity analysis at the beginning and end. We've had projects that are multi-phase projects, and one of them, we were within 1% productivity on each one of the sections that we did. And so they kept moving to the next section, to the next department, because we're pretty good at doing it, and it's that non-productive and non-value-added work that we're really trying to attack. And if anybody, everybody does pretty much the same thing. If I have extra time, I'm going to take extra time to do my work. I go back to my old history where I worked at a company and I had a person who, she was fast. She did data entry, she was the fastest person I ever had. But one of her friends got home at 2:30, and from 2:30 to 2:45, almost 3 o'clock, almost every day, she was then on the phone with her friend. I didn't care, she got her work done. She wanted that phone time, she got her work done. One of the owners got really annoyed about the whole concept and said, you have to fire her. We ended up having to hire a person and a half to do what she did because she was that good at it and she wanted the time to be on the phone with her friend. So it's always that concept of, if you have one thing to do and you have 8 hours to do it in, you'll make it last for 8 hours. So that's the kind of thing we look for. How do we get more into somebody's day and reduce the amount of time they have to do non-productive work?
And the other benefit of that is that a lot of times the people who are doing the work feel better about it when they're doing less busy work. So, I mean, we had people in one department who were doing kind of boring, mundane tasks, and by the time it actually, I would see them like 5 years later, and they would be energized and getting a lot more work done, working in the courtroom, or basically advancing not only their career but the county's operations, because they, I hate to use the word empowerment, but it really made a difference when they felt like they were actually contributing.
And I know you're not going to hear what I'm about to say, but what Michelle's referring to also was everybody in that department got a pay increase. They got a lot more work. They got a small pay increase. And over the course of years, it's Delaware County, over the course of years, we would see the people on the street and they wore nicer clothes, they carried themselves better, and the department continued to become more and more efficient because they liked what they were doing now as opposed to just sitting there doing mundane tasks. We actually had somebody one time where we took away her, so old we are, the green bar paper. She was doing a green bar report, and she goes, "You're not going to take it away, are you? I like doing that." Yeah, well, we took it away. So. Work process improvement comes in a lot of forms. Some of it is simply We've always done it that way, so people want to continue to do it that way. And what we look for is ways of, just as it says, literally making sure that the process is correct. And you're not doing it the same old way that you've ever done it before, because that's just not the way it needs to be done now. And there are so many technological options. Used to be a lot of the technology that we use today was out of everybody's price range. It was just imaging, scanning, whatever you want to call it. It was millions of dollars. Well, it's not anymore. And it really does do a lot of things to improve process. I'm the only one that can hold this piece of paper. But if you all have copies on your desk, just think right now, if there was just one copy and everybody could look at it at the same time, what an improvement that makes. And we looked into your technology, and we know that you use certain imaging, you know, you use certain technology within the county. The question is, how far has it gone? And is it following the old technique of replacing paper with an image, or is it replacing a process? And one of the early processes we did, projects we did, I guess it was Cumberland. Anybody a lawyer? The reason I ask is we replaced the counter operations in the cloud tray. And so when something would come across the desk at the front, they were actually scanning it into the system. The system was giving out a receipt, doing all of that stuff, and the judge on the bench would be able to see the documents. They might not be fully indexed at that point because more indexing had to go on, but the judge could actually see what the lawyer just filed with the pathology. And one of the things we did, I used full clip, you guys use Staples. One of the things that we did was we replaced, they couldn't use blue backs anymore. Nothing was coming into that office stapled. It all had to be bull clipped. It's really simple. I can remove this bull clip and I can put it in a scanner and I can get my work done. But if I had to take the blue back off and I had to do the paper clip, well, I knew that we did a really good job because one of our people's friends was a lawyer who worked in Montgomery County and complained about the new system because they had to use bull clips on everything. And we knew we did a good job at lawyers complained. The way we do work process improvement is by process mapping. We'll do a process map, which is, we've taken that and kind of pushed it off a little bit in terms of we use things like real desks, pictures of the desk, pictures of a cash register. We'll use the international no sign on things that we want to get rid of. And we had a really pretty nice compliment by one of our clients. Said, your guys came in, you all asked us all kinds of questions. She said, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. She said, but you built the perfect elephant. You know, by asking all the questions you did, you designed and showed us what we were doing right and doing wrong, and how many steps you can pull out.
She said one team was looking at a leg and one team was looking at a trunk and somebody else was looking at an ear and we put it all together. So that's,
So when we use
it wasn't a political statement about the elephant.
But it is a proprietary methodology that we use. And again, it's tailored to you. We're not going to come in here, if you hire us to come in here, and say, this is a number 3, this is what you need to do. We're going to talk to the people here to figure out what's the best way to do things here. Culture is different in different places. The supervisors are very, very different. In order to get some of this work done, we use focus groups so that people are giving us their ideas. It's very difficult for a group of people to say, I don't want to do this way, when they're the ones that helped build what it is that we're wanting to do.
Another thing, and this was in Lancaster, we did some work with the recorder. And he was able to go from a staff of 19 down to a staff of 11. And he got technology more, this was a while ago, so a lot of people have adopted the technology since then. But he was able to continue and kept looking into newer technologies and was able to keep his staff at that low level.
The other thing is we have transformation assistance. People by and large don't like change. And so we just aren't going to hand you something and say, here's what you should do. We need to help you implement what it is that we recommend so that it actually does happen and you get what you paid for and you get the results that you paid for, which is very, very important. We've seen far too many projects, where you get a book put in front of you and nobody helps you do it, and the book stays there because intuitively people don't know how to do this by themselves. Project assurance, project management, whichever one you want to call it. We call it assurance because we don't like the heavy duty project management that feels onerous to everybody. But, and there's the key but, to get projects done, you need to have milestones, you need to have objectives that need to be met in certain timeframes, or projects just get out of hand and never get completed the way they should be. So it's very, very important to use project management, project assurance, but we're not the heavy-handed, because we often have to work, I should say often, we always try to work as a team with people in the county, and they're not used to working in a milestone-based world, other than people in accounts payable who know they have to get certain things paid, or accounts receivable who knows that things have to go in at certain times, you know. But typical clerk doesn't understand those things, and if you start to put too much pressure on them to get work done in a time frame that's outside of their normal job, it just doesn't work. They start to push back. So we kind of use the kinder, gentler project management. Quite honestly, we had a project manager that we got rid of because she pushed on me too much, and I did not want to have to deal with somebody calling me up 3 times a day to see where I was and what I was doing. I have until Friday, leave me alone. If I don't have it on Friday, tell me. But don't call me 3 times a day. So we're not onerous in that respect. It's done to make sure that we keep the project on schedule, keep the deliverables coming, but not in a heavy-handed way where people start to rebel from having too much management on top of them. And by the way, as I said, we work in project teams along with your people. Our project manager will manage your people along with our people. Unless you have the project management here that's really highly trained and knows exactly what they're doing, then that would work in tandem with ours to make sure all the project stuff gets done.
And an example of how that's helpful is, and this goes back a ways, but one county brought us in because the district attorney wanted a file room that had domestic relations files in it. And so this was a case where we worked with supervisors in the department, helped them bring in a vendor who actually did the scanning, but to make sure that the documents got indexed correctly so people would be able to find them, the supervisors from the department would oversee the outside vendor. So that way they were able to get 60,000, 65,000 files in a very short period of time. And the staff was able to use them going forward, and the file room could be empty. Some of the files could be disposed of according to the retention regulations, but other files were just moved to offsite and cheaper storage.
So, folks, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to time check. We're halfway through the hour. And I want to make sure we have enough time at the end for some questions and answers, so be advised.
Okay, actually, if you have questions anywhere along the line, just jump in.
I think if you want to leave the rest of that for me to read and just talk
Yeah,
about
vendor selection is exactly what it sounds. We will work with your staff to write requirements. We'll work with your IT department to run a vendor selection process. We'll work with your solicitor's office in contracts. These are all things that we've done. It's a complete project life cycle. There are certain counties that we are the ones that have actually written the RFPs, done the vendor selection, and on behalf of the county, written the contracts. We have lawyers that we work with, and contract law with vendors is pretty straightforward. What you need is timelines, milestones, proper payment schedules, and the stick if it's not going well. Okay, business and records processes. We talked a little bit as we've been going through about document retention. People tend to over-retain documents. And if you over-retain something, it's a possibility that it can come back and bite you. Once a document is past its life cycle, get rid of it. We actually have worked in over 140 some different municipalities where we did the purge and reorganization of their files. It was under grants in New Jersey, and counties in Pennsylvania have hired us to do that work, and municipalities have. If you don't need a document, or you don't need to store it in a certain way, change. It's one of those kind of things. It's especially important at your level that the people below you know what to get rid of and when to get rid of it. Because if no one can get to it, because it's past its life cycle and you got rid of it, it can only help you. There's one little township in New Jersey that spent over $200 and some thousand in legal fees because they kept everything. And one of their people that lived in the town got angry at the mayor, and he requested every license for every project in the township. So like if you wanted to build something on the first floor, or you wanted to change something, he asked for every one of those. And as long as they were normal size, they'd do it. And then once he got those, he had some more things. And it was just an argument between him and the mayor. And in most cases, he didn't even pick up the stuff that he asked for. It was just a bad situation. Policies and procedures, for records management, you have to have them, but more important, people have to follow them. So that, again, going back to this idea of, if you need to get rid of something, get rid of it, don't keep it.
I was going to say, we talked about records management.
Yeah, the strategic plan of the records management is just to set policies and procedures in place, train department heads on knowing what to do, and make sure that they follow them and that they're prioritized. You can't get everybody to do it all at one time. Continuity. Continuity planning. We have found that too many places do not have a plan in place of what to do if something happens to, just think about this building. If there's a fire in this building, what do you do? Where do you set up operations? Your computer systems go down because the fire takes them down. How do you go back to paper? How do you continue to deal with your constituents? You're legally obligated to do a number of things. And disaster recovery is nice. We'll put in our backup tapes. Well, continuity planning says this building needs to be replaced. Where are you going to go? How quickly can you get up and operational? What's it going to cost you? It goes down to literally taking an organization to paper, because you may have no other means of operating other than paper.
We did work with York County, and they did it in 3 different phases. So they did the court, the administration, and then human services. And we looked at their processes and helped them set up plans for recovery. And I think within 2 years, they said they had 13 different events that caused them to put the plan into effect. And that out of the 13, the plan covered everything. The 13th was somebody it was an attempt to commit suicide, but basically they were able to use a homicide scenario. So it really covered everything.
But it's very important to look at the bottom line there is location, people, process, technology. Because you can only get so much technology back up at any given time. And this one, we say, this happens to be a real picture. You'll see it from the bottom. It's Harrisburg. And it comes from the Historical Society. They had no other way of getting their paper back than to hang it outside of that air track. And that's what they did. And,
So that's 72.
Yep, yep.
and it's amazing. We've worked in municipalities that have been struck by lightning, and their computer systems are all out, and they don't know what to do. If I don't have my computer, mine's in my bag. I carry it with me all the time. But if you don't have a computer, how do I go about taking this in? How do I go about getting deed recorded? How do I go about accepting money? We're working with one client right now who has a handshake agreement with TD Bank to set up a table like that one that you're sitting at in their lobby to take receipts and take cash, checks, everything over the table. They're not even behind the counter. And they don't have provision for an armed guard to be next to the person. And it's an authority that collects an extreme amount of money. It's a water authority, sewer authority. And that's their backup method. There it is, the table.
Well, we also.
And with the handshake agreement, so TD Bank gets peeved about too many people coming in and disrupting their operations. Let's see how long that handshake stays.
But it's funny, we've all gotten so used to computers. But we were working in one county where they said, oh, it's no problem. We have an agreement with our bank if something happens to the building. So we said, oh, great, where's your bank? Downstairs in the building. And, things that are so cheap and easy to do in advance, like a stamp for a reporter or anybody who's got to accept checks, it's easy to have a stamp, so if you have to process paper receipts, you can do that. If for some reason or other you can't be in your office, it's $1, $2 to get that stamp, but if you don't have it.
Extra checks, receipt books. It's called a go bag. And you would keep the go bag for anybody in this building somewhere else. And if something happens to this building and they cannot enter, they get their go bag from wherever it is, and they go to a predefined place. And we were working with one county, and the predefined place was the library. It's a great open space, counters, everything was wonderful, except that somebody changed the plans and forgot to tell anybody that they had changed them. And so they were now mixing people who were coming in to return a book with people who would be coming in to pay a bill, which was not exactly the smartest idea. The pyramid is very simple. Each department has its own plan. They roll up into an integrated plan. There's a management structure behind all this, and ultimately it's priorities set by you as a group along with the president judge for the courts, commissioners, and you for the county. And so it's very simplistic, but it's not if we don't get it right. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So,
Questions?
questions? Sue, you got it in?
Thank you.
No questions? I either explained it too well or I didn't explain enough.
You said that you did some work previously for the county with CCAP, through CCAP and the Commission on Crime and Delinquency. What was it that you did and when was that for the county?
It actually goes back quite a number of years. It goes back,
Well, actually, it goes back to our previous organization. Howard and I have been working together since 1996, when the company was called Trilogy, and we grew and got acquired by a company called CBiz. So when we were CBiz was when we were actually doing county integration work and Group 222 work. So that would have been probably 98, 92, 2000. And then after 2004, CBiz decided they didn't want to be in the government market space anymore. And so we said, that's fine, but we want to keep doing this because we care about it. So we arranged to, we were going to be spun off, we ended up just restarting. But that's how we got to become core group. So it's the same core group, and that's why we didn't have a list of projects in the presentation, because
they span
wouldn't
three
have
different
done
companies.
different names.
Yeah, it spans Trilogy Associates, Trident Associates, and Conduit Group. It's the same people.
CBiz trial.
Yes, I'll see this Trident. Strange story, but they were going to merge all of the people that did anything that had to do with computers, although most of our work is not about computers per se. And we were supposed to change our name to eSolution. And there's a company called Trilogy Software in Texas, and they wanted to get the ability to use Trilogy unto itself and their logo. And I thought, I have to change my name, so why not sell rights to it? So we sold the rights to it. And then about a month later, a month and a half later, CBiz decided that, no, you can keep your own name. We don't want to put everybody in these solutions. You don't belong in these solutions. So that's why the name changes.
But in any case, we had teams out here working on it, looking at software, integrating. It was law enforcement and court work.
That's the
I
only.
didn't work on that one, so you can talk more about it.
Yeah, no, that's crime and delinquency. We did a number of projects for them. And you were one of the counties that would join into these. You didn't have any match. It was pretty unique.
So it was something CCAP did on behalf? of
CCAP,
somebody?
yeah, or Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. And the grants that we worked on had no matches. So if you went back into your books, you would not actually see any of these. They were 100% grant funded. The sponsor of a lot of the grants was Delaware County, because our office is in Delaware County. And we had good connections with the people in Delaware County, so they would be the ones that would, we helped find the grants, and they would administer the grants on behalf of the counties that were part of it.
Other than Delaware County, and I believe you said you did some work for York County, first of all, what you've done work for, and specifically what have you done for those counties?
Okay, the first major county that we worked for was Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. We did the voluntary, the recorder of deeds, and the domestic relations. We worked in York, where we did the continuity of operations planning for the entire county. We worked in, I hate to admit it now, but Luzerne for a little bit. Before the scandals, we've worked in, obviously, Delaware County, Chester County, Berks County, Bucks, Lehigh, Northampton.
The project about Lawrence involves Washington County, Erie,
Montrose in there.
Indiana, and a couple of other up north. But
Do you have a copy of anything that would kind of like provide a summary as to what you did? And, you know, if it was to save money, how much money was saved? And
Yes, we
how
can provide that.
how that was done. I appreciate seeing something like that.
That's not a problem, we can provide it. We actually have to do that with a number of requests for proposals, show them what projects. We can give you references from various size counties, from different departments within the counties. We've done extensive work with district attorneys, public defenders, courts themselves, judges, pretty much every row officer we've touched at one point in time.
in Lancaster, we did a lot of work with their Human Services Department, helping do a strategic plan and an off-site kind of planning session, and then improve the process in children and youth, working with them, and that led to work with the orphan support. So, get you more on that. Also, we've done work on electronic processes for purchasing, and sometimes even just one role like a contract manager can make a big difference. So we created a job description for a project manager. Within 3 months, they saved $250,000, just in terms of reviewing purchases and having somebody familiar with contracts, making sure that the right things were being billed.
We've recently done.
I was about to say something. Sorry.
No. I was just, so, I mean, if we could see a little summary as to what you've done for other counties, that would be great. And then the other question I was looking at here in the PowerPoint, you must do a lot of work for businesses, for profit businesses, because that's what it seems to be. A lot of your PowerPoint is talking about competitive edge, current business objectives.
Yes and no. That goes. Yes, we have. We've worked in pharma. We've worked in banking. We've worked in insurance. I got to work in Bermuda for 2.5 years, doing insurance and banking. It was tough. Somebody had to go. Nobody else wanted to volunteer. No. But we have also found, and we're working now with a lot of county colleges, and what we're finding is the county colleges are really in competition with each other.
Community colleges.
Yeah,
Okay.
depends on which way you want to call them. Some call them county, some call them community. But we have found some of the most competitive people are the presidents of these colleges. They want to be the first one to get this done, or this done, or this done. And so that when we talk about competitive edge, while you don't compete with each other, your row officers, when they go to conferences, they like to talk about how much they're doing, how far ahead they are than what you are in this county or what you are in that county. And so there is some competition amongst them. We use the competitive edge. You're not trying to beat somebody else out to make money, but there are people within government that love to just go and brag that they have the latest and greatest. They've had new technologies brought in. They've changed their work processes. The person in Lancaster, when he went from 19 to 11 He's proud about it. He went to every show and told everybody how great he was. And so it is
And
competition.
York, I'm sure you've heard this from them, but they used to tell us all the time how proud they were of being cheap and getting things done for low cost. So we,
I mean, that's the goal of all of us. The government is trying to deliver services at the lowest possible cost and do it as efficiently as possible.
right.
We did just go through, you're probably aware of this, it was probably 5 years ago now or somewhere in that neighborhood, but we went through a mission review and we had a study performed by Public Financial Management, PFM, identified suggestions for cost savings, and we implemented many of those. We did have a situation where we had a structural budget deficit a number of years ago, which has pretty much been erased to this point in time. Unfortunately, this year and last, we did not have to raise taxes. We didn't have to look, and we're looking to hopefully not have to raise taxes next year too. So we have done some things, I think, that have been positive in terms of, squeezing every ounce of efficiency out of every taxpayer dollar. And I like to believe that we have some good folks on staff here who have, implemented a lot of these efficiencies. We implemented gain sharing, which we, a number of other departments and so forth. So I guess my question is, I'm not quite sure at this point in my mind as to what more your organization or your group would bring to Cumberland County at this point, but I'm willing to keep it open.
My question was, how do you compare yourself or contrast yourself to an outfit like PFM and what they do?
We are very much more process oriented, not financially oriented. If we get the processes right, the finances come along with it, the cost savings. So that's how we contrast us. They come at it from the financial, as you just mentioned. We come at it from the process. If we can save you 20% of clerical staff time, there's a lot of money that comes with that. So that's how I would contrast us. We just finished up a project. We don't write software, so understand we did the design and everything, but we have a completely paperless process from the time that they cut a purchase order. It's PDF'd and emailed to the vendor. The vendor puts it back up into a web portal
After they sign it.
Web portal knows to expect this purchase order because it comes from their ERP system. So I have a purchase order number, they put that purchase order up, and then they put all their invoices into the web portal. They go through a work process. This is where the contract management came in. Goes to accounts payable first. If accounts payable thinks it's proper invoice, it goes now workflow-wise to the department, who will then attach bill of ladings, receiving slips, whatever they need to. They electronically sign the invoice. The invoice goes back up to payables. Again, electronically. No papers happen except we have to put bill of ladings and things like that on. So we made sure we got the item, and then it could be paid. And that's what Michelle was saying, that in the first 3 months of contract management, the county was saved $250,000 because they would get two invoices for the same thing, just the way their systems worked. It was 3 or 4 units. I was just trying to make them a little better than they are.
Two immediate benefits. One is that it's a little more self-service. So you have fewer calls coming in about where is this, where is that to the county. So there's less time on the phone because the vendor can just go in and find it themselves.
We didn't
Even
show
more
them
important,
everything.
and this is where it comes back to money again, is one of the reasons for it is while money is encumbered at the beginning of the year, a lot of counties find that they don't really know at any point in time, am I going to have to spend $1 million this month, or $2 million, or $500,000? You know, you might know over a certain period of time, but there is nothing on a daily basis. So by changing the process and having it entered, having it looked at by accounts payable, the county could find out anytime they wanted.
We actually have a running cash flow report for you.
Can I make a suggestion because we're out of time? I was kind of hoping we get into a couple of more specific things, but I think I see from, and I hear, I would suggest 3 things as a follow-up to this. Number one is Commissioner Hertzler suggested we could give a list of the counties and the project, do a table, 3 columns, how we're going to do it, you know, what the benefit was. Short and concise, that's number one. Number 2 is, when we talked about over the phone is, frankly, the big embarrassment is that we still have paper timesheets. Maybe you could do a sort of, do a 2-pager on how you would approach coming in here and looking at it. Now, you know we have Kronos, you know we have Kronos deployed at our 24/7 shops. I can give you, that's approximately 50 to 60% of our workforce, even 40% of our workforce doing paper stuff. It's very, very time consuming. But maybe you could do kind of a scope of how you would approach that. The third thing I would suggest is maybe give us if we're asking for a list, is maybe give us a case study. One of the things that caught my ear was your whole thing with your benchmarks. And in this way, we could, it kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only do you get our courts into it, but you get our roll officers. And to be honestly frank and off the record, the potential for improvement in processes in the roll offices is not that we're exempt, because that's not the case. But our roll officers have, I think, some things that are done the same way for a long time. Maybe if you could follow up with those 3 things and get it to us within a reasonable period of time according to your schedule, then I think we could kind of take a look at all that, and then get back to you as to, to come in for a second and go around and roll what have.
Sounds good.
I didn't want to be overly presumptuous.
No, I think you really hit the nail on the head with the row offices. Gary, you never got a chance to ask a question. I don't know if you have any.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
That's great.
And actually, I'll see if in addition to the benchmarks, and this is from County Ground here, we did do a project between the Prothonotary, the sheriff, and one other office that might be of interest to you as well. So
You
maybe
can always
we'll
get
do
one.
case studies.
I think, get those 3 things, you want to add one, that's fine. Get it to it, let me know when you think you get us to it, if you need more information in order to make, especially about the phones, the sheet stuff. Let me know and we'll knock out with that.
One of the things that I'm going to be looking for in terms of, you mentioned it here, in terms of, a lot of operations is this is the way we've always done things, okay? And people don't like change, you're absolutely right. So what I'd be interested in is whether you've done any work with respect to where, there's a better way, whether that's suggestions coming from your group or whether that's suggestions coming from among employees as to how you made that happen in other counties.
I can answer that one pretty quickly if I may have just a minute or 2. What we attempt to do is bring the people into the process as much as we possibly can. It is very difficult for a person to say, I don't want to do that, when they were the ones that were suggesting that we do that. We usually do focus groups and have a group of people from sometimes one department, sometimes many departments. One of the counties, we created a new Department of Finance and Administration, and we had people with different parts of the county in those focus groups. And that was the only way that we were ever going to get change there, because they dug their heels in. They thought people were going to lose jobs, and it was not about losing jobs. It was about getting more work out of the same number of people.
We've suggested in the past, and discussed in the past, incentives and or some kind of reward for employees to come forward with a better way of making the widget, and make it more fit and save us dollars. So I don't know whatever happened to that, or where we ended up on that.
They-
That was-
Typically, people don't like to come forward because chances are they're stepping on their superior. You know, it's always been that way, and their supervisor's been here for 18 years. If I come forward and say, I have a better way of doing this, the supervisor might have a better way of getting them out the door.
So in fairness to our staff,
Okay.
people come to me 5, 6, 8 times a day with ways to improve things. The problem is we have lots of things to improve. So your point's well taken, but again, in order to wrap this up, I mean, those are the things we'd like to see. The potential here is considerable if we feel that, you know, there's value in what you're saying. We have our records improvement committee, the whole question of archives and documents. There is no consensus. There is all kinds of stuff all over the place, and it's really, really hard to get people to focus. So I think we need to get a better feeling of what you can do with some more specifics. Jim, take a look at that stuff. Again, there's a lot of stuff. It's a target-rich environment, okay? The question is, are you the right folks? Where do we begin with this exercise? So here's the challenge to you.
I will tell you that it won't be until probably mid next week, towards the end of next week, before you get anything, because,
I would think we would rather have you do a good job and take the time to do it right.
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, no, it's just, I'm thinking of our schedules. We go from here back to the office, but then we go to a client tomorrow morning and a client on Friday. So, you know, it's not
But
gonna happen.
we've actually been thinking about this a lot, about case studies, thinking about our meeting today. So we're on the same page, and the questions are right on target. So
Timeframes.
we can get that.
And the other thing too is we're actually getting ready to unveil our new website. And with the unveiling of the website, we're actually going to have case studies and things like that that people can sign in
You can
and
use
get.
this as a chance to preview.
Yeah.
Some free audience surveys.